Hey folks, it's Philip with the Everyday Fighter podcast. A couple years ago, I was teaching my regular morning class, and a lady walks in. She was actually a regular for the evening class at our school. I think she had to make up some sparring class for her rank requirement. So she couldn't make the evening class, so she decided to come to my class. And my class is it's a full hour-long class, and then there's a half-hour sparring afterwards. So she was going to stick around for both sessions. But I say that just to point out that I wasn't used to working out with her. I didn't know kind of her habits, right? And one of the things I noticed about her as we were going through the sessions was she'd say a lot that she wasn't good at something. At the beginning, she kind of explaining why she was here, in my class as opposed to the evening class. And, again, it's not a big deal. She was just, we're just making conversation. And she said, yeah, I need to do some more sparring because I'm just really not good at it. And okay, that's fine. But then I noticed that was a pattern that continued to come up, during the rest of that regular class where, have her do something, some sort of striking or kicking or what have you. And, it would still come up, and she would say, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'm just not good at this thing. And she'd been training with us for quite a bit, a few years at least. So, it was interesting to me that she said that. And then when we finally get to the sparring session, everyone has to gear up, and everyone else is putting on their equipment, and she's back on the mat. And she says, yeah, really, I needed to get my sparring requirement done here. And, I don't like sparring. I'm just not good at it, And I looked at her in the face and I said, I think you really need to keep track of what you're saying to yourself. You keep on saying that you're not good at things, particularly sparring. But if you keep on saying that, then that's going to have an effect on you, not only in terms of how you perform, but also in the future where you're trying to learn, but then you have it in not only your head, but it's a strong enough thought that you said it. That's going to impede you in some way. So that's something I think you really need to be careful of, right? And she said, oh, okay, well, all right, I understand. And I thought that was the end of it. So a couple of days later, I walk into the dojo, into our gym, and I see Danny. He's the owner of the place and, my teacher. And, we're talking about something completely unrelated. And he says, oh, yeah, had somebody talking to me about you the other day. I'm like, oh, okay, really? What is that? And I had no idea what it was about. Again, I thought it was just already gone. And he said, oh yeah, well, this lady, this woman, says her name, came in, and we're talking about something completely different. But then at the end of it, she said, oh yeah, I took the class with Sensei Philip, and I said something to him, and he almost made me feel like I said a bad word. Like those were the words that he said. I said, oh really? And at this point, now I'm brought back to what happened. Like I said, I didn't think it was a big deal, and now I'm thinking, oh great, did I offend this woman now, and she's upset at me, and she doesn't want to train with me anymore? It's just kind of just my ego there. But Danny ended up saying, "Oh no, she didn't bring it up in a way that she was upset or anything. She was kind of matter of fact about it is all, And I said, "Oh great, well, what did you tell her?" And he said, "Well, I just said that, hey, that's just the way Sensei Philip is. He just, he takes all this very seriously, and he doesn't mean anything by it, but he trains really hard, and." He just kind of has that mentality. Again, she wasn't offended or anything like that, but, and I told him, I said, Danny, hey man, I'm sorry if this was anything that, put any stress on you. The last thing I want is to have somebody upset at me so that they affect, whether they train with you or not, and he's like, no, there's nothing like that at all. And he's like, quite frankly, I like what you said. And I wish that more people in the gym had that same kind of mentality. So, just keep on doing what you're doing. So was a good thing there for, definitely for me. It's something that really strikes me. It's very important, right? Because, we got a lot of thoughts in our head, right? And a lot of them, we decide to let go. Some we hold on to, right? Some we hold on to enough that, we start thinking it on a more consistent basis, but then some of those thoughts we think so much that it actually comes out in words. When someone says something, particularly on a frequent basis, then that's a very dominant thought for them. I remember another time with a good friend of mine. This was actually at the beginning when we first kind of started get to know each other. We were both in kind of an informal business mastermind with one or two other guys, and during the first meetup that we had, it was at some restaurant somewhere. He had a frequent talk track as well, and his talk track was I don't know, right? So he would talk about some business idea he had, go through. It's like, yeah, I was thinking about doing this, and I think it'd be good for this and that, but I don't know. And he said that on a pretty frequent basis. I could swear he said at least half a dozen times in a matter of an hour. At the time, even though we were in a business mastermind and part of that is just kind of holding each other accountable, I didn't feel like I knew him well enough to actually say something, but it definitely stuck out for me, right? And we ended up going our separate ways after our meeting, but it still kind of stuck in me. I was like, you know what, Philip, you're not really serving him by keeping this to yourself. So what I ended up doing is I emailed him and I said, hey man, it was awesome meeting up, and I think we're on to something here. And I said, but one thing I did want to mention to you is that I noticed that you said this a lot. I noticed that you said, I don't know, at the end of a lot of the things you're talking about. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but that's something you probably want to be more cognizant of. And again, we're very good friends now. We actually, we're business partners for a while as well. But that was something where it kind of struck me. If it's coming out of your mouth, it's a big deal, right? I tell those stories as examples, but I am far, far from perfect, and I hope you kind of get that as we're talking here as well. That I'm not the thought police, and I'm not anybody that should be held to any higher standard than anyone else. I make those exact same mistakes, and even this week, I have a weekly call that I'm on with a bunch of other guys, and I can't remember how we got to it, but we were going around the call. Everyone's talking about what they're working on or kind of that type of thing, and it gets to a point where I say, kind of in a joking way, it's like, wow, and we're talking about it being very early in the morning. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm just no good to anybody at this hour anyway, so that's why I need my coffee. And the moment I said it, I was like, oh man, did I really need to say that? Now, of course, I was saying it in the context of kind of just, being funny, poking a little humor at myself or whatever. But it was still something that, I kind of caught myself saying. And again, there's a lot of times where I don't catch myself. But in this particular case, I didn't need to really catch myself right away anyway, because the facilitator, a few minutes later, he comes back to me and says, you know what, Philip, I noticed that you said this, and I would challenge you on that. Whether you really are no good to somebody at this hour. And I was like, you know what, man, you're absolutely right. I appreciate you calling me out on that. So, it happens to me all the time. But that's something I would encourage you to do. Think about, kind of reflect on what comes out of your mouth, what you say, not only to other people, but also, to yourself. That's a big indicator in terms of how strong a thought is for you. And, you hear the term all the time, right? It's like, Your thoughts dictate what your focus is. Your thoughts dictate what you're going to, what's going to be coming into your life. But, thoughts, they turn into words, and words turn into deeds, right? So if you can catch it, at the thought level, that's awesome, right? A lot of times we can't, but when it gets to a point where you're speaking it, then that it becomes more of a challenge. So it's you really want to monitor that as well, and think about that not only for your training, but just in other parts of your life, right? It's easy just to go on autopilot. Habit it's a challenging thing, particularly if you're not aware of your habits. So if you need to, find people that can hold you accountable, but even think about it yourself. Like when you say something, kind of pause a little bit and kind of review what you said and make a decision. Is what you said, particularly if it's something that you say on a recurring basis, is that serving you or is it hindering you? Okay. Anyway, that's it for me. Again, this is Philip with the Everyday Fighter Podcast. We'll talk to you next time.